Hi everyone, my name's Naira. Welcome to this downward dog tutorial, which Mikhail will be demonstrating for you today. Thank you so much, Mikhail. Let's start in an all four position. So coming up onto all fours, you've got the knees directly beneath the hips and the hands directly beneath the shoulders. And start by spreading your fingers really wide. So your hands are like starfish on the mat. And what you want to be doing is facing the index finger forward. Now, if you're really flexible in the shoulders, you can face the middle finger forward, but otherwise, a lot of you probably will have the index finger facing forward, like Mikhail. Try both, see what feels best. Then spread the fingers wide, press the hands into the floor, tuck the toes under, and then lift the hips high towards the sky and guide them towards the back of the mat. So now that we're in the downward dog, I'll take you through some of the details. So the reason you want the fingers spread really wide is you really want to be pushing the weight into the fingers and the knuckles, the underside of the knuckles of the hand. A lot of people complain in downward dog that they have wrist pain. This is one way to try and avoid that. Maybe even try and lift your wrists ever so slightly and see what it feels like to bring the weight properly into the fingers and knuckles of the hand. Next, you want to externally rotate the upper arms. So that means that you're almost trying to get your armpits to face each other. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but that's the sort of action that you want in the upper arm so that you're really engaging the shoulders and the muscles here at the side of the upper back. And again, that's going to take the weight out of the wrists. Relax the head so you've got strength through the hands, strength through the shoulders and upper back, but you want the neck really relaxed. Space between the shoulders and the ears. Nod the head yes, shake it no to check that it really is hanging loose and relaxed. The gaze traditionally is towards the navel, but you can look towards the feet if that feels a little difficult or odd at the beginning. And then let's take a look. You're aiming to have a really long back. So don't worry about sinking the chest towards the floor or anything like that. Just keep the back nice and long. Engage the abdominals so that you're lifting the hips up and back towards the heels. So again, bringing the weight towards the back of the mat, out of the hands, out of the wrists. Now, looking at the feet and looking at the legs. So the hands stay shoulder width apart, the feet are hip width apart, and it's absolutely fine to keep the knees bent. A lot of people feel they've got to straighten the legs, they've got to get the heels to reach the floor. One day it might happen, fantastic if it does, but don't worry if it doesn't. If it feels comfortable, you can slowly start to edge the heels towards the mat, straightening the backs of the legs. And what's going to create more space in those hamstrings as well is if you engage the quads and lift out of the kneecap. So that's a little tip for opening the backs of the legs, but otherwise perfectly fine to keep the knees bent. And in this position, it's just so beneficial because what you're doing, if you're doing it correctly, is you're strengthening the hands, the upper arms, particularly the triceps, the shoulders, the whole back, but you're also lengthening the back, opening through the lower back. You're lengthening and opening through the backs of the legs. You're creating more flexibility and mobility in the feet. It's just a beautiful pose. And when you practice it regularly and you do it correctly, it's actually a resting posture. I know that sounds crazy. Often at the beginning, you're in so much pain in downward dog and it's so uncomfortable. But the other reason it's a resting pose is when you relax the head, that sends a signal to your nervous system to calm down, to move from fight or flight to rest and digest. And speaking of rest, come down, Mikhail. You can come into child's pose for a moment. Fantastic demonstration. He really held that for a long time. Very, very impressive. From here, I'm just going to give you another option as well, because if you are doing downward dog correctly and building strength in the right parts of the body, shifting the weight towards the back of the mat, out of the hands, strengthening the shoulders and upper back, you shouldn't feel wrist pain, but it can happen that it comes back from time to time, or you just have particularly weak wrists, perhaps hypermobility issues, things like that. Another option is that you could come onto the forearms. So it's a different pose. It's dolphin pose, but it is a variation that you can use sometimes in downward dog if the traditional downward dog just gets a little bit too much. So we'll come into dolphin pose, Mikhail. So for this, you're on your forearms. The elbows are directly beneath the shoulders. So either the forearms are parallel to each other, or you can interlace the hands. And then exactly as Mikhail's done, you just lift the hips up. Make sure that you push the forearms into the floor nice so that you're lifting out of the shoulders. You're not dumping into them, because again, we want to create strength, not fragility in all these parts of the body, and particularly the shoulders here. The head, you can either look at the mat, or if that doesn't feel good, you can relax the head as well. Breathe here, always engage the abdominals. Beautiful, that's very intense dolphin pose. Engage the abdominals to lift the hips high. And that's it. In the description box, I'll have some practices where downward dog features, although it does feature in so much of Vinyasa Flow. So check those out. I'll also be putting a link in the description box for the prenatal variation of downward dog. I'm 7.5 months pregnant at the moment, and there is a different version if you are pregnant. But thanks so much for watching. Really hope you enjoy practicing downward dog more from now on if you don't already, and that maybe you'll find that it can be a resting pose. Thanks so much. See you soon.